We are taught to be kind, to forgive, to turn the other cheek. But history does not remember the kind. It remembers the conquerors. The world does not follow those who play fair, it follows those who win. And to win, truly win, requires something most people will never have: the willingness to be hated, the courage to be feared, the strength to be ruthless. We admire compassion in theory, but in practice, we kneel to the one who can destroy us and chooses not to. That's the game. That's the psychology. You can live your entire life trying to be good and still be stepped on by those who abandoned goodness the moment it became inconvenient. Machiavelli didn't invent this law. He exposed it. He tore away the mask of virtue and revealed the engine underneath, cold, calculating, and ancient. Because when power is on the table, goodness is a liability, mercy is weakness, and hesitation is fatal. We don't respect the soft voice in the room. We respect the one who can end the conversation and knows it. The weak are moral because they must be. The powerful pretend to be until it no longer serves them. That's why we fear them. That's why we follow them, and deep down, that's why we envy them. This video isn't for the faint-hearted. It's for those who are tired of being stepped on, overlooked, disrespected. It's for those ready to face the brutal truth Machiavelli tried to teach us. You don't rise by being good, you rise by learning when not to be. Because in this world, respect is not given, it is taken. And those who understand that, those who are willing to walk into the fire and not flinch, they're the ones the world obeys. In this video, we're going to show you 6 of those laws, not to turn you into a villain, but to protect you from becoming a victim. Crush your enemies completely. Men must either be caressed or annihilated. They will avenge themselves for slight injuries, but cannot do so for serious ones. Niccolo Machiavelli. There is no safe middle ground in power. A half-defeated enemy is not a problem solved, it is a problem postponed. A wounded rival does not forgive. He waits, he studies, he sharpens, and one day he returns. Machiavelli understood the most uncomfortable truth in human nature. The greatest threat to your future is the man you didn't finish off. You may believe in mercy, you may believe in second chances, but your enemy believes in revenge. Even if you spare him, even if you offer peace, his pride still bleeds. And pride is never quiet. It doesn't die, it transforms into resentment. And resentment, left alive, becomes a future rebellion. So, what does it mean to crush completely? It does not always mean blood or violence. Sometimes it means stripping a rival of his influence so thoroughly he can never speak against you again. Sometimes it means exposing him so openly that no one dares to side with him. Sometimes it means letting him live, but only as a shadow of who he was, powerless and irrelevant. This is not cruelty, it is control. You are not acting out of anger. You are closing a door that must never reopen, because to defeat someone halfway is to leave the infection alive. And in politics, in business, in life, infections spread. Think of history. When Octavian defeated Mark Antony, he didn't negotiate terms. He hunted Antony and Cleopatra to the edge of the earth. When they were gone, he erased their names and became Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. He didn't just win the battle, he removed the memory of opposition, and that is why Rome bowed to him without a fight. The mistake most people make is emotional hesitation. They fear looking cruel, they want to appear noble. But power is not built on appearances, it's built on certainty. If you leave your enemy with hope, you leave yourself with danger. So when the time comes, when the line has been crossed and the decision must be made, you do not hesitate. You silence, you exile, you neutralize so thoroughly that the world forgets there was ever a threat. And then, peace follows. Not because your enemies love you, but because they understand resistance is no longer an option. This is the paradox of Machiavellian mercy. If you want peace to last, you must end the war completely. No loose ends, no silent grudges, no unfinished business. Crush completely, not because you enjoy destruction, but because you understand what happens when you don't. Be a fox and a lion. The prince must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. Niccolo Machiavelli. Power is war. A silent war, a smiling war, A war fought not with bullets, but with masks, with whispers, with appearances. And in this war, strength alone is not enough, nor is cunning, because if you are only a lion, they trap you. If you are only a fox, they tear you apart. Machiavelli's law is clear. To survive, you must be both. The fox, intelligent, observant, deceptive. The lion, fearless, dominant, aggressive. One sees the danger, the other becomes the danger. Let's start with the lion. The lion represents raw force, the power to crush an enemy when the moment calls for it. Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, Alexander stormed Persia, Napoleon crowned himself emperor in defiance of the Pope. They didn't ask permission. They didn't wait to be welcomed. They moved. Boldly, publicly, without apology. That's the lion, the show of strength so undeniable it silences doubt before it speaks. People follow the lion because they fear him. They don't question, they don't test, they submit. But the lion alone is not enough, because in a world full of traps, pure strength walks blindly into ruin. Which brings us to the fox. The fox watches, the fox listens, the fox survives. While others react, the fox observes patterns. He reads intentions behind smiles. He sees the knife hidden behind the handshake. This is the cunning Machiavelli worshipped. Cesare Borgia used it. He manipulated rival families into turning on each other while he appeared neutral. He feigned weakness to draw out hidden enemies. Then, when they revealed themselves, the lion struck. But it was the fox who set the trap. Modern power still obeys this law. Think of Putin, the fox who poisons quietly, plays the media, controls perception. Then the lion, who invades without flinching, uses force to shock, to dominate, to remind the world, I can still crush you. Or think of Steve Jobs. The fox who built alliances, read markets, seduced investors, while behind the scenes, he isolated threats, forced competitors into corners, and reinvented entire industries with ruthless clarity. The lion roared when the time was right. But it was the fox who chose the battlefield. You must become both. Too much fox, you become a coward, clever but unable to act. Too much lion, you become predictable, strong but easily fooled. But when you balance them, you become untouchable. The world can't figure you out. They don't know whether to fear your strength or your silence, whether you'll strike first or already have. This confusion is power. Because those who cannot predict you cannot stop you. So when you walk into a room, your presence should carry two messages. I see everything, and I'm ready to destroy anything. The lion. That's Machiavellian mastery, not being one thing, but being whatever the situation demands. The average man plays one role. The ruler plays the entire theater. So sharpen your mind like a fox, sharpen your teeth like a lion, and when the time comes, let them realize, too late, that you are always both. Never rely on others. Who becomes a prince through the favor of the people must always keep them friendly, but he can never rely on them. Niccolo Machiavelli. The world is filled with smiling traitors. They shake your hand, they praise your name, they tell you they've got your back. But Machiavelli knew the truth. Loyalty is a performance, one that ends the moment it becomes inconvenient. Never rely on it, because the very people who cheer for you today will abandon you tomorrow. Not because they're evil, but because they're human, and humans are fickle, fearful, selfish creatures. They follow strength, they obey advantage, and the moment you show need, they vanish like shadows at sunrise. This is why the Machiavellian ruler does not build his foundation on affection. He does not depend on friends, allies, or crowds. He depends on himself, his mind, his will, his ability to act alone if necessary against the entire world. Because those who rely on others are already doomed. They've handed over the keys to their power, and the clock is ticking. You can borrow a throne, you can borrow fame, you can borrow trust. But borrowed power is a ticking bomb. Ask any puppet ruler, ask any CEO backed by fragile investors, ask any man whose status comes from public favor and not from force. They all live in fear, not of enemies, but of the hands that lifted them up, because if they can lift you, they can drop you, and Machiavelli warns. The power that can be taken from you was never yours to begin with. Even allies have limits. They help when it serves them. They stay loyal until a better offer appears. And when your weakness threatens their future, they'll burn you alive and call it strategy. So the wise ruler does not build his house on relationships. He builds on leverage, not trust. Leverage, not hope, preparation. He doesn't wait to be saved. He prepares to be betrayed. That is strength, not the illusion of unity, but the reality of self-sufficiency. Think of the lion in the wild. It hunts alone. It eats alone. It leads the pride, but fears none within it, because it knows the moment it shows weakness, the pack turns, so it stays sharp, dominant, paranoid. The Machiavellian mind is the same. It sees every alliance as temporary, every partner as a potential threat. It builds alone, it plans for collapse. And it ensures, always, that if left with nothing and no one, it will still rise. That's what separates the ruler from the ruled. To depend is to kneel. To rely is to risk death. To stand alone is to rule. Let others put their faith in friendships. Let others cry out for backup. Let others beg the crowd to love them. You sharpen your mind. You cultivate silence. You prepare to walk alone, because one who can rule in solitude is immune to betrayal. That's the Machiavellian path. Cold, isolated, untouchable. Because when the kingdom burns and the allies run, the man who never relied on anyone still stands. Strike first, strike decisively. The wise man does at once what the fool does at last. Niccolo Machiavelli. Hesitation kills. One moment of doubt and the throne is gone. 1 second too late and your name is ash. Machiavelli knew this. Power is not earned, it is seized. In the real world, threats do not announce themselves. They disguise, smile, wait, but while you're thinking, they're moving. And when they strike, it's too late. The fool wants more information, wants to see how things play out, wants to believe people mean well. The wise man doesn't wait. He studies fast, decides faster, and acts before the enemy can blink. Because the first blow changes everything. In war, the side that strikes first decides the rules. In politics, the one who leaks first controls the narrative. In business, the first to move leaves the rest behind. Indecision is not neutrality, it is surrender. You may think you're being patient, but Machiavelli would say, you're giving your enemy time to breathe. And breathing enemies return stronger. He writes, injuries must be inflicted all at once, because delayed attacks give your enemies time to adapt, regroup, or retaliate. So if you must strike, strike early. Strike hard, strike in a way they never recover from. Do not chip away, do not warn, do not soften the blow. End it. When the world sees you as swift and decisive, they fear you, they hesitate around you. They know if they step out of line, there won't be a second chance. That's power, and power doesn't belong to the passive. Machiavelli doesn't advise cruelty for cruelty's sake. He advises ruthless efficiency. If there is a threat, neutralize it. If there is disloyalty, silence it. If there is betrayal, destroy it, before it spreads. Because he who waits loses. You must become the storm that never announces itself. Act first. Act fast, and leave nothing behind that could return to haunt you. Because if you ever find yourself asking, should I act now or wait a little longer? Remember, by the time you ask the question, your enemy might already be answering it. Be willing to be evil. A man who wishes to act entirely up to his professions of virtue soon meets with what destroys him among so much that is evil. Niccolo Machiavelli. We were raised on fairy tales, told to be good, taught to be kind, promised that if we followed the rules we'd be rewarded, but Machiavelli spits on this illusion. He lived in a world where kindness was exploited, honesty was a weakness, and goodness, real, raw, moral goodness, was a death sentence for anyone who sought power. He understood one thing: the world is not ruled by saints, it is ruled by those willing to become monsters. Not openly, not stupidly. You see, there comes a moment in every life when doing what's right means losing everything: your job, your power, your safety, your legacy. The Machiavellian mind doesn't flinch here. It does what needs to be done, not because it's proud of evil, but because it understands this truth. Sometimes the world demands a monster to defeat another monster. The good man hesitates, the Machiavellian does not. The good man hopes people will return the favor, the Machiavellian prepares for betrayal. The good man forgives, the Machiavellian remembers. When you are too noble, you become a target. When you are too forgiving, they walk all over you. When you are too moral in an immoral world, you don't win, you die. Machiavelli never said, become evil for fun. He said, be willing to be evil when the time demands it. This is the harsh, unsentimental core of power. If you must lie to protect the future, if you must betray one to save 100, betray. If you must destroy your enemy completely, destroy them. The man who hesitates, who clings to morality when it no longer protects him, is not virtuous, he's prey. And so Machiavelli whispers to us even now, if you are not willing to be evil, someone more ruthless will take everything from you. We've seen the architecture of power, the 6 iron laws Machiavelli carved into history. They are not kind, they are not hopeful, but they are real. And in a world that punishes naivety more than cruelty, understanding them may be the only way to stay awake. We are not teaching darkness for the sake of darkness. We are not urging anyone to betray, destroy, or deceive, but we are saying this. If you do not understand how power works, you will always kneel to those who do, because the world is not a playground, it is a chessboard. And while some play to survive, others play to win, quietly, mercilessly, without remorse. Let's remember the laws. Be willing to be evil, not to become evil, but to recognize that sometimes the world forces you to choose between appearing good and doing what must be done. Strike first, strike decisively, because waiting for kindness from your enemy is like expecting a wolf not to bite. Never, despite this real reprisal, never rely on others. Trust is a necessity. Stand alone or fall when they abandon you. Be a fox and a lion. The world isn't kind to those who are only clever or only strong. You must become adaptable, silent when needed, and terrifying when provoked. Crush your enemies completely, not to delight in ruin, but to prevent unfinished wars from becoming future catastrophes. Appear moral, be ruthless, because people follow images, and the wisest rulers keep their blade beneath the robe, not above it. These principles are not meant for villains. They're meant for realists, those who want to protect their vision, their dignity, their future. In a just world, these rules would be unnecessary, but we don't live in that world. We live in a world where smiles hide betrayal, where silence conceals strategy, where goodness left unguarded becomes an open wound. So don't become evil, but don't remain blind. Understand how power moves, not to abuse it, but to defend yourself against it. Use these truths not to destroy, but to build something that cannot be destroyed. A life of purpose, a mind that cannot be manipulated, and a spine that does not break in the wind. Because in the end, the true Machiavellian isn't the one who manipulates the world. It's the one who can't be manipulated by it. If this truth cut deep, then let it echo. Like, subscribe, and stay sharp before the world dulls you again.